Nothing like the 97.3 ESPN audience. I sit here and ask for texts originally about your Mount Rushmore for President's Day. Not presidents, obviously, of sports athletes. I make one comment about Robert Duvall passing away, and I've already gotten multiple texts with people saying who their favorite Robert Duvall movie is. Gotta love this stuff. We will get back to the Phillies, maybe Robert Duvall as well. I always wondered if Jeff Kerr a big movie guy or not, because Mike Gill's not a big movie guy, Jeff. So we don't usually get into movie topics when Mike Gill is here, but I'm filling in for Mike, and we're mentioning Robert Duvall passed away today on the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN. By the way, Jeff covering the Phillies for us with 97.3 ESPN now. Joins us each week on the Sports Bash, as it's been a busy weekend for the Phillies. First, Jeff, welcome in. How you doing today?
Pretty good, Josh. By the way, here's a Robert Duvall fun fact trivia for you. Who does Robert Duvall play in To Kill a Mockingbird?
Good question. I don't remember the cast extremely well. It's probably one of those things I need to go back and watch.
Yeah, he's Boo Radley.
Okay.
Yeah, he plays at the very end. I don't even think he speaks in that. I don't remember. It's been a while since I've seen the movie.
Yeah, you and me both. No, we've gotten people texting in about, The Godfather, Godfather 2, Gone in 60 Seconds. We got somebody who texted in Killer Elite. So we got some good jumps. So I went with The Judge personally. I thought The Judge was a very, very good, gritty, kind of like, emotional, kind of like, diving into like the relationship between an estranged father and son. So some Robert Duvall, legend there. So.
Yeah, he's in Days of Thunder, too.
Yes, he is. Someone texted that in as well. He's a Harry, the old pit crew boss.
Yep. Yeah, he's in everything. If you think of a great movie, Robert Duvall is probably in it.
He probably was. And if he wasn't in it, probably wasn't as good.
That's a good point. I like that.
Well, we can get into, Jeff. Let's start with this, because somebody who is in a lot of the conversation right now, Bryce Harper, spoke to the media yesterday, and we played the audio in the first hour so people can actually hear what he said. I think hearing his tone, Jeff, says a lot about what he said. It really does seem like that this is a guy who took maybe a little too seriously what Dave Dombrowski said back in October. What was your takeaway from what Bryce Harper said to the media yesterday?
So I honestly kind of like how Bryce Harper is taking this personally. I thought he would. And maybe it was that self-motivating tactic by Dave Dombrowski to get that extra juice out of Harper heading into his age 33 season. Look, I thought Harper made it clear when he had the Not Elite t-shirt. I don't buy the whole, someone gave me a t-shirt and I wore it. No, there's always subliminal messaging when you're wearing a Not Elite t-shirt a couple months after someone basically says you're not elite. But in fairness to Dombrowski, he did compare Harper to Freddie Freeman too, and he mentioned how Freddie Freeman had basically a second career in his 30s. So whatever way to get this guy motivated, I don't think Bryce Harper needs that much motivation, but you can tell it's going to bother him all season.
Yeah, the t-shirt comment I thought was the dumbest thing of all, because he's like, they handed me a t-shirt I wore. It's like, hey, Bryce, if one of your, the competitors of your sponsors handed you a t-shirt, are you going to wear it? Of course not. It's just such a silly thing to say.
Yeah, exactly. For example, if you're a Miller guy and you're sponsoring Miller and Bud Anheuser-Busch comes, here's a t-shirt. It says Budweiser on it, right?
Right.
I don't know. Yeah, to me, it's point was made there. And look, I don't mind people asking Bryce Harper about it. He hasn't spoken since the end of the season, since literally game 4. So, yeah, hopefully this is all in the past now, and he can focus on the World Baseball Classic, have a good World Baseball Classic there, and kind of send the message to his GM, hey, you know what? I'm still here. I'm still really good. I still deserve this money in year 8 of this contract. But I guarantee you, if Bryce Harper has a big year, he'll be one to bring up the contract extension again.
Well, with that being said, Jeff, the other guy who spoke over the weekend, kind of got buried in the weekend, was Kyle Schwarber. The whole Nick Castellanos being in the past. Schwarber, he didn't seem too interested in talking about Nick Castellanos anymore. And it feels like that there's a lot of guys in that locker room, Jeff, who, again, reading body language, listening to how they say stuff. It seems like to me that, maybe some of these guys are glad that the Nick Castellanos era is over.
It's weird with Schwarber because I've talked to Schwarber a ton, and he always gives you a thought-provoking answer, even if he is caught out of left field with the question. He always knows how to kind of give you a good answer for a good story, right? Especially when you talk about his success against left-handed pitching or adjustments he's making to his swing. But you have to know that Nick Castellanos' question is coming, right? And the answer he gave was like, it was almost like, yeah, he's not here anymore. That's about it.
It just makes you wonder about, the Matt Gelb story in The Athletic about, all the people who he spoke to. It's like now you're hearing the players come out and you're kind of getting the vibe that, maybe Castellanos was a problem holding them back last year.
Yeah. Look, I talked to a lot of younger players on the team. I think they in general like Nick. I thought Nick always gravitated himself toward the younger players more. Like, he was the first guy to console Ryan Kerkering, right? Whether you could, whatever your opinion is of Nick Castellanos, that's a genuine moment. Or, I know he went out of his way to help out Otto Kemp last year. That was a big thing. I think he wanted to make Otto Kemp feel welcome when he came up. And I think that's one of the good things he did. But it's kind of hard to do that with someone who's at your same skill level, no?
Exactly. And I think that kind of goes back to the whole assertion that, Castellanos wanted to be treated like a star, and he realized he wasn't even one of the 5 best players on the team. So, but now we replaced him, right? Now we replaced him. Jeff Kerr joining us here on the Sports Bash. Ask Jeff Kerr, PHL on the X platform. Josh Hennig filling in for Mike Gill here on a Monday edition of the Sports Bash. Adolis Garcia, gun show and all, showing up at training camp. But what is your take on the Adolis Garcia era here?
I don't think he could be any worse than Nick Castellanos. Look, Nick was bad. I actually did an article for my Substack today. Out of 122 hitters that had 50 plus at bats that bad cleanup last year, Nick Castellanos was 109th in OPS. Now, Adolis Garcia wasn't too much higher, but you factor in his defense. He wasn't the worst defensive outfielder in baseball last year. He's actually a Gold Glove caliber defender. And he's got more power than Nick Castellanos, so you have to think right away, you've improved. Look, I always think that's been the problem with Nick Castellanos, and this isn't Nick's fault at all. I think too many people had a different perception of Nick Castellanos than what he actually was.
Listen, it's a very fair point, and I think that, now that we replaced him literally in the lineup, now you have a guy who, I think the best part about Garcia, Jeff, is that he's got a higher upside. He's a guy who has a ton of potential. Yeah, he had a down year, but I go back to this. You saw what the Phillies did, Jeff, with Brandon Marsh. He was a guy with the Angels who is considered almost like a failed prospect. The Phillies get him, they turn him into a productive hitter. Garcia was a World Series champion clutch hitter in the postseason a couple years ago. He's way more of a talent than Brandon Marsh. Can you imagine what the Phillies can do with him is my thinking.
This was a guy that they tried to trade for at the deadline 2 years ago. They ended up getting Austin Hayes, but they were interested in him, and they liked his bat. They liked the fact that, this guy could hit 35, 40 home runs at Citizens Bank Park. If you go on Baseball Savant, you can look this up, by the way. That's what he was projected, and they thought he'd be a good fit to a team that ended up winning 95 games that season. They did bow out of the playoffs, but they were looking for some right-handed pop. I think this is what they needed, and you got to give Kevin Long and this hitting staff the benefit of the doubt that they can fix him, because they have done it with Brandon Marsh. They have done it with Kyle Schwarber. In a way, they kind of did it with Alec Bohm for a little bit. Remember Alec Bohm was really struggling as a baseball player until, he said, I believe and hate this place. So then he became okay. Yeah, I like the Adolis Garcia signing. I thought they signed him too early, though. I thought they jumped the gun. Maybe they know more than I did about it. Maybe there was a market for him. But it seemed like when they signed him for a 1-year, $10 million deal, I liked the deal. And then you're like, okay, why aren't they getting rid of Nick Castellanos yet? Like, what are they waiting for? So that's what made that whole scenario pretty interesting.
Jeff, speaking of the lineup as a whole, I know you wrote about in your Substack about, the lineup. And I think one of the things that's interesting about the lineup is what Rob Thompson said, which is basically the top 3 is going to be the same. Some order, it's going to be Turner, Harper, Schwarber, and they're going with the idea that, hey, we want these guys batting in the first inning, want them to get the most at bats. It makes a lot of sense, But I'll ask you, what is the right configuration of those three, Jeff Kerr?
I mean, I'm willing to give the Turner, Harper, Schwarber thing a shot because I think Schwarber can bat third. Schwarber can bat anywhere in the lineup. Let's be real here. They can bat him lead off. They can bat him. He batted second last year. He hits 56 home runs. So I like Turner at leadoff. I think I do Harper too. Alec Bohm hit 299 as a 3-hitter last year. I wouldn't have been opposed to it. They put Bohm third and put Schwarber fourth, but I think they want Harper, Schwarber, or a combination of that batting in the first inning. Look, here's the problem with Turner, Harper, Schwarber. Who bats fourth?
Right.
I think that's the real question.
I mean, my answer to it, and it might not be a popular one, is I want Garcia for it because I feel like he's the biggest threat. Bohm, I feel like Bohm, I don't know what he is at this point. I feel like he's a guy who's playing for a free agent contract, and you're kind of hoping that he's going to go out there and have like this, a good year, but they don't hit free agency. So it's like, are you going to leverage his desire to get a new contract as part of the lineup, or are you going to put the best guy at a certain spot in the lineup?
I would agree with you. So if let's do a hypothetical lineup here. Say Garcia's fourth. Against Rays, when you put Marsh fifth and then move Bohm to sixth, don't you think he'd be more productive at six?
I think it would be a good move because I think Bohm's an RBI guy, and if you're hoping that Marsh is going to get on base, who better to drive him in, right?
Yeah, I thought, and someone pointed this out to me on X today, and it's a very good point. Remember in like 07, 08, 09 with this team, I know we're going back almost 20 years now, but how Charlie Magler used to stretch the lineup, like Jason Worth batted second. Pat Burrell batted fifth. Shane Victorino batted sixth. And it was a way to kind of stretch the lineup out. So why don't you try doing that instead of putting all your heavy hitters up top, and then you don't have that strength in the middle there? Like, I would like this team if JT Realmuto batted seventh or Alec Bohm batted sixth, just so you can get. Is it a great lineup? No, but you're going to have good players probably hitting where they should at this stage in their career.
Jeff Kerr joining us. Of course, you can follow him on X at Jeff Kerr PHL, covering the Phillies for us with 97.3 ESPN this year, joining the Sports Bash each and every week. Josh Hennig filling in for Mike Gill on a Monday edition of the Bash. I think the guy that I'm most excited about, though, in this lineup, Jeff, I want Justin Crawford hitting ninth because I want Crawford ahead of whoever's at the top of the lineup because I think what he's going to bring to the table is going to be something we haven't seen in Philadelphia in a long time.
Yeah, I think Justin Crawford is kind of the perfect bat for this offense right now, right? You're not worried about power with him. You're worried about a guy who can get on base. And look, he's hit 300 at every level in the minors. I think it's fair to expect that he can hit 300 in the majors early in his career. It may not be this year. I think this year's going to be an adjustment point, but you got a guy who plays above average defense, probably a better left fielder than he is a center fielder, but he's going to be center field. But if you're just looking at the bat, the guy's a high on base percentage. He hits lefties. His slugging percentage is in the 800s, which is incredible considering his lack of power, but he's the gap hitter. And I think his power will develop in time. Oh, and he can steal a lot of bases for you. That is what you want out of an 8 or 9 hitter in any major league lineup, and he's going to provide that for you. It's almost like when his cousin came up, right? You thought this is what you were going to get with J.P. Crawford, and you ended up getting more power. He did it in Seattle. He didn't get a chance to do it here, but Justin, like, to me, is he the sexiest prospect? No, but he's a good player, and I think fans are going to see that this year.
I like the fact that he worked out this offseason with Eric Davis. The fact that he went and worked out with a real center fielder, and it's like, Justin's like, hey, Dad, I know you're a 4-time All-Star, but you weren't a great center fielder. I need to go find like a bona fide center fielder to work with. Hey, Eric Davis, you won multiple Gold Gloves. You're a World Series champion. You teach me how to do it. I like that mentality with Justin Crawford.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, Josh, as someone who's covered Justin Crawford over the last couple of years, the guy's as professional as they come. Like, you can tell he's come from a lineage of major league players, whether it's his dad or his cousin or people who his dad knows. Like, he just carries himself very professionally, and he doesn't think he's bigger than anybody else or anything. He's happy to be in the moment. Like, I think he's been waiting for this time for quite a while now, and like I've told people, he's earned this job.
Jeff, I know another guy that you've seen a lot of over the last year has been talked about a lot in camp is Andrew Painter. Of course, last year was a rocky year for him in the minor leagues coming off of Tommy John surgery. But according to all reports, the team feels like he is back to being Andrew Painter. So what then is a realistic, like for the fans out there who have heard so much about this guy, right, Jeff? I mean, we've heard people compare him saying that he is to the Phillies what Paul Skeens is to the Pirates, right? Like people have put this guy on a pedestal. Jose Lazaro was on MLB Network saying that he's one of the best talents he's ever seen. And it's like, this guy's got a lot of praise, a lot of expectations. So what is it realistic for Philly fans to look at this young man?
I think this year it's just, he stays healthy, gets that command back on his fastball, and if he's what everybody thinks he's going to be, your back half of the rotation is going to be really good. There's a reason why you kind of let Ranger Suarez walk, which he was never coming back anyway, and it wasn't even because of Andrew Painter. It's just because they couldn't afford him and it was time to move on. But look, 3 years ago, the hype with Andrew Painter, that's the hype that Ethan Miller is getting right now. If Andrew Painter is this 1A that they think he's going to be, man, the Phillies are going to be really good this year. I just hope he could be a solid number 3, solid number 4, just kind of learn on the fly and be strong in the second half of the year. But they always say after the second year, returning from Tommy John surgery, if the command is there on the fastball, that's what takes the longest time to get back. If it's there, because his breaking pitches, they got hitters out in AAA. He was able to locate his fastball at times in AAA. It just wasn't consistently. If he could do that, if he could build his innings up, and look, the Phillies will probably monitor him a little bit, but he could be something. And look, I really like the guy's potential. He's 6'7", and remember, he's not even 23 yet.
And I think the other side of the coin with that conversation is the guy on the other end of the rotation, right? On one hand, we're talking about Andrew Painter. The other story is Zach Wheeler. He threw from 120 feet today. He hasn't thrown from a mound yet, but he is making progress. Rob Thompson and Dave Dombrowski kind of both put it out there. They're not pressuring him to come back, which thank God, because we don't need to pressure that guy to come back, right? But still, I've heard a lot of estimates, Jeff, from mid-April to June 1st for his return. Is it just better for the Phillies to plan as if Wheeler won't be back anytime soon and then just kind of let it happen? Because I feel like that's the way they should go about this.
I feel like May 1st is more realistic than anything else, right? Like, I've heard he's a couple weeks back of what he normally would be, and that's fine. Look, I'm not willing to rush Zach Wheeler back anytime soon. He's not going to be back. He's not going to be back by opening day. I'm curious to see, though, like, how they're going to do this rotation. Is it going to be Andrew Painter and Taijuan Walker, and Walker just fills in for about a couple starts, and then they go back to Zach Wheeler? Or what if Walker pitches well? Then that gives Zach Wheeler more time. I still think they need starting pitching depth somewhere. Aaron Savali would have been a great player to get, but he signed for $6 million. It's probably a little too rich for them. Maybe they bring back Walker Buehler and find a way to get him in this, not use a 6-man rotation per se, but to have someone that's available, because they don't have the starting pitching depth in Lehigh right now either.
No, they don't, and I think that's where maybe Dombrowski. I don't want to speak for him, but he kind of gave the idea that, hey, maybe we'll make a trade somewhere in March and like add another body or another arm. I know there's still guys out there free agency, but Jeff, you just made up a great point. How about the fact they want to spend a lot of money? They have kind of gone out of their way to be like, hey, like people like me thought that, well, if you had the money to spend on Bo Bichette, you have money left over. Whereas the Phillies are being like, yeah, but we just want to spend the money on that guy, not just on a guy.
Yeah, on a player that we think is worth it. Yeah, like you said, like last year, you spent money to spend money. That's how you signed Joe Ross for $4 million, and then he's gone.
Right.
So you don't want that either,
No.
Yeah, I mean, look, Jordan Romano and Joe Ross were terrible for this team last year, and they weren't around come the postseason. That's not what you want, and I think that's where they're being cautious. It seems like if it's the right fit or the right player, they're going to do it.
Jeff, I got to tell you, I was at a local brewery down here for the game that Romano gave up. It was, the 8 runs or 10 runs in the inning?
Yeah.
And I remember sitting there with people, and they kept turning to me being like, are they going to take this guy out? Like, why is he still in the game? Because remember, he came in for Luzardo, and you were like, wow, they could have kept Luzardo in there. And, they just let Romano get, destroyed. And I'm just sitting there thinking, what is going on here? Someone hand me another drink to watch the rest of this inning.
I felt so bad for him too because like the guy was legit trying. It wasn't happening for him.
Nope.
Like his May ERA was 2.37, and after the Phillies put him on the IL the rest of the year, you're just like, how did he have a good May?
It's so ridiculous.
He might be there. I think he had the highest ERA ever for a reliever in this franchise.
I mean, Jose Mesa had that 1 year where he was pretty bad.
Yeah. Well, remember Mesa was like kind of an all-star like the 2 years. He didn't make the all-star game, but I think he was pretty close. Like he had back-to-back 40 season saves. And if they would have gotten that version of Jose Mesa in 03, they would have made the playoffs.
Exactly. No, instead he imploded in 03.
Yeah, and then remember they traded for Mike Williams and he was just as bad?
Oh, that thing. That and remember the Andy Ashby trade?
Oh, that was terrible. Did he start opening day that year because Schilling was hurt?
I think it was like 2002 or something like that.
Oh, or was it 2000? What was this 2000 the year they signed like a bunch of players? Like they traded for it.
I gotta look it up because I remember Ashby did pitch like opening day, and you were like, "Oh, he was so good for the Padres." Then it just was a fail.
And then who else?
It was 2000.
Yeah, they signed Mike Jackson that year too.
Oh, that failure too. That was an abomination fail.
That 99 year, I used to tell people that like my first year really remembering the Phillies is like 95. Like 93 I remember, but I was 5. But like 99 I remember they were hot. Like they were 10 games over 500. They were on the verge of play, and then like they lost 19-20, and I think it was the first time I ever asked for a coach to be fired. I'm like, "All right, get rid of Terry Francona. He can't wear the storm."
Yeah, it was 2000 was the Ashby year. That was the year they just couldn't get out of their way.
They were terrible that year. And then like 01, they kind of regressed back to the mean, but they needed that's where I actually thought the manager helped that team when Boa came in.
Yeah, they started that year, the first half of the 2000 year, they went 39-47, but that's not even the big number, Jeff. They were outscored by 50 runs in the first half of the year.
How were they only 8 under 5? I don't remember that much. I remember how bad they were.
The second half, they were 26-50. They got worse.
That's what I remember. Yeah. And then remember in like 01, they were like 20 over 500 in like June. They were they played out of their minds that year.
They finished 01 86-76.
Yeah.
The month of May they were 20-8.
Do you remember that year they traded for Turk Wendell and Dennis Cook and they were both bad?
Yes. They were both bad. Yeah.
Yeah, Bruce Chen was bad, so they had to trade him. And like,
Bruce
not like you thought Bruce Chen was good or anything. Man, that pitching staff is incredible. Yeah, Robert Purcell, Bruce Chen. I think Padilla can. Now, I remember I saw Nelson Figueroa's first career start at the Vet, and they swept the Marlins in the 5-game series. It was really hot that day. That's what I remember about that day.
I remember Person, I think the opening day starter, either 01 or 02. That was weird.
Yeah. Well, remember the game where he hit like 2 home runs?
Yes, I do. Yeah. It was boiling hot that day too.
Yeah, I still blame Mike Lieberthal tearing his ACL for that year because I think they were red hot when Lieberthal tore his ACL. I think it was out in L.A., and Johnny Estrada, they had to pull up really fit because I think Estrada was either in AA or he just got to AAA, and they basically said, we're going to ride with Johnny Estrada, who ended up being like a solid MLB player, but that's asking a lot for
it was
basically a minor league catcher to come up, even though he was a prospect, and say, oh, by the way, we're in first place. You got to hold on to it.
Right. Good luck, kid. We're all counting on you.
Yeah. Travis Lee was like borderline all-star that year. It was a weird year, but it was a fun year.
It was a very weird year. Speaking of the past, Jeff, before I let you go, I've been asking people throughout the day. I figured I'd throw this to you. So it's President's Day. So I said, we are going to compile a Mount Rushmore of Philly sports. You got to pick one from every team. Phillies, Eagles, Sixers, Flyers. I'm compiling all the answers at the end of the show. I'll make a poll where people can vote on throughout the week. We'll have an official Mount Rushmore by the end of the week. So does Jeff Kerr have a Mount Rushmore of Philly sports?
So you're doing all time for each franchise, right?
Yes.
So Phillies is easy. I think I go Schmidt. He should win that one.
That's pretty much a consensus.
Yeah. Eagles is a lot tougher because football is just different. I still say Chuck Bednarik's one of the greatest Eagles of all time. So I'll go with him.
Okay.
Sixers, Wilt. You're Will or Dr. J?
Which one? Gotta pick one.
Yeah, I gotta think about this. Because Wilt was a Warrior more than a Sixer. I'll go Dr. J for them. And the Flyers, I'll go Bobby Clark.
All right. Yeah, we've got some interesting answers. We got Ben Narek, some people. Some people said Reggie White. Some people have said B-Doc.
Yeah, I don't mind them going them. Like, Reggie White was tremendous in B-Doc's a legend. Like, I mean, I'm surprised. I should have went Steve Van Buren, too, because he was the... I mean, look, he was the NFL's all-time leading rusher when he retired.
He was.
And won 2 championships here. So, I mean, if you want to really go back...
I mean, to me, I think some of it also is generational, right? Because, like, you got some people who will be like, they look at Allen Iverson as, like, the all-time Sixer. Or some people were like, I wasn't alive to see Bobby Clark, but I was alive to see Eric Lindros or Ron Hextall, right? So, for some people, I think it's also about, like, what is your age range? What did you grow up watching,
It's so weird, too. Like, all Joel Embiid, like, if he makes one finals, I believe his trajectory changes in this city immensely. Because if you look at the guy's career and just don't put the name up, like on the basketball reference page, you're like, who is that? Oh, that's Joel Embiid, the guy you think stinks.
Jeff, I've said it 100 times. To me, Joel Embiid is the modern-day Bill Walton. If you get him healthy for 1 year, you win a championship. Otherwise, you can't stay healthy. That was Bill Walton in Portland.
Yeah, exactly. And every year in the playoffs, he's hurt. Like, you hope that he's healthy one time. And that's why I like to tell Knicks fans this. I know that Knicks beat the Sixers, and Knicks fans are very obnoxious, but I like to tell them, I said, Joel Embiid doesn't re-injure that knee, you guys probably lose that series because the Sixers were dominating. I know it was only one game, but the Sixers were dominating that first. And then be that dominant series and he could barely walk.
Yeah, and by the way, you could have also won the series if Tobias Harris would have done his job.
What was that? Remember, I think it was, what was it, Game 6? Did he even score in that game?
Nope. Didn't score at all.
He was a guy that I always liked Tobias Harris before he came here. And then he was here for 20 games. I'm like, I would not give this guy money. And they gave him money.
Yeah, that's a conversation for a 30 for 30 documentary. That's for sure.
Yeah. The whole Jimmy Butler, Ben Simmons, Tobias Harris thing.
Yep.
I mean, Jimmy Butler's probably that one guy that really, I think, changed a lot of Sixers fans' opinion on the team.
Yeah. He's Jeff Kerr at Jeff Kerr PHL on the X platform. Jeff, plug the Substack and all your stuff.
Sure. So my Substack is jeffdkerr.substack.com. It's free. Anybody can read all my articles. I'll put out an article a day. You'll see me a couple podcasts here on 97.3 ESPN. Josh, maybe you'll join me. Earnshaw's going to join me. We'll have some fun while Gil's in Egypt.
I'm around, man. You know where to find me.
All right. Sounds good. I'll text you. You're here in the studio or you're working. You're always working.
I'm working. That's one thing you and I have in common, Jeff. We're always working.
Yeah, that is true.
Jeff, take care. We'll talk soon.
Yeah, see you, Josh.